Good evening, everybody. Looks like I'm live. How's everybody doing tonight? Oh, good to see you back there, Frog. How you doing this evening, Frog?
Good evening, Teresa. I'm doing fine.
It's
Thought I'd
wonderful, wonderful to have you.
Thought I'd pop in early as it's late here.
Well, cool. I don't plan on being live for very long. I just kind of and I hope my connection's going to hold up because it's been kind of wacky for a little while. We had some tornadoes and stuff a few days back, so if I kind of fade in and out, that's the reason. But I kind of wanted to go over everything as I mean, I didn't want to spend lots and lots of time on it. I think we're all glad that this trial is over and that all of us can sort of put it behind us. But I had seen some of the people that were at court reporting some things about this trial that I didn't personally see, that I think were maybe fabricated. And so I wanted to go over my version of events, etc. So
Yeah, I think, well, sensible people will know that lies are still being told.
we've always suspected that would happen after the verdict. If you're, if you're on Earl's side, then this verdict is probably, or could just be another little thing that you can make excuses for him for or about. And if this is what you were expecting, then same thing. I mean, it's I think we all had our minds made up about what kind of a person that he was before, and I don't think that this really changed my mind any. I mean, he's the same piece of it. I always suspected that he was. So I think Doug is going to join me also. Doug was there, but I guess I could probably get started. I managed to make it to, I believe this was the third time that I had been in Houston for this trial, as it sort of dragged on for the last 4 years or so. And so the first couple of times, everything just sort of got pushed on, but the trial actually took place. So I got into town on the Monday, but I missed the first witness, who was Detective Reed, and I missed most of the testimony of Sharon. And but I did get to see all of Brandy testify, all of Jessica testify. I got to see the youngest daughter testify. I got to see the doctor that the prosecution called. I got to see her testify. And I got to see all of the defense witnesses testify, as well as all of the closing arguments. But I wasn't there for the verdict because I left. I left after the jury got the case. So it's really cold in here. I don't know if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm kind of shivering. So give me 1 second. I'm going to turn the heater up.
It's probably been cooler here, but I think we're just coming out of our freezing spell, so.
Well, I don't know, it's kind of gotten chilly here, so Doug needs a link. Okay, let me send him a link real quick. Okay, Dougie, if you're watching, I sent it to you on Discord. Okay, so as I was saying before, I didn't get to see Detective Reed testify in the first time he testified, but he also testified for the defense. So I did get to see him testify at that time. But as I got there, Sharon was testifying, And it was like the very tail end of her testimony when I walked in. And what I got from the 6 or 7 minutes that I watched her testify was that she seemed very indifferent. And that was about the only take that I got from it. She just seemed really indifferent. And then they called the daughter, the complainant, and she testified to a lot of details about, particularly, I guess, the conditions that they lived in and the way that they moved around from place to place a lot, lots of different schools. I guess lots of different ways that they could kind of fall through the cracks. They had, from the testimony, they had CPS in their lives at an early age and were actually, from what I heard her testify to, they were actually removed from the home at one time because of the conditions in the home. And eventually ended up living in this trailer on Telephone Road, which is where she says that the abuse occurred over the course of approximately 2 years. And I'm not going to go into all of the details of what she said. I can tell you that, they were disturbing, just disturbing. And I thought that she was a truthful witness. She appeared truthful to me, but obviously I'm pretty biased because I know Earl to be a piece of shit. So, I knew that going in. What do you think? Frog, did you, I don't know, did you have any comments to make about, I don't know, just wanted to see if you wanted to chime in. I don't want to just long-wind it.
Well, I think probably not being possibly quite as biased as you, but probably still a little bit biased. But I've always believed that the daughters, and I'm going to use the plural word, believe that the facts that they've set out actually happened. There is no one is going to say these things happened if they didn't believe that they happened to them. I've never had any doubts about that.
Right, I would agree as well. I don't think people would make the sort of salacious claims that were made, just out of the blue. I just don't see that. I'm trying to think of what other sort of details I could give you about the daughter. And she was the oldest daughter, other than to say that, she seemed credible to me. I watched the defense attorney. I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you said you arrived when Sharon was on the stand. Was Texas Sheepdog in the courtroom then?
No, Texas Sheepdog was not there at all for the first
And
full day of testimony.
so I'm going to go through the witnesses that you've spoken to so far. So he didn't hear Sharon and he didn't hear Brandy. So that's who else was on the first day?
And Detective Reed was the very first witness.
But you weren't there, so maybe he was there for Detective Reed. Perhaps Dougie was there, and he'll be able to tell us. But sure. I think he said that he was there for the whole of the trial.
I have. That's one of the some of the misreporting that I've heard about this trial.
Or he's heard the whole of the trial. He's the one out there, isn't he? He's the one. Let's be honest. He is the main one spreading the lies about the trial. I know others have commented that it's their view that the trial was, the jury should have been convinced a different way. But I think it's one specific person who is out there who said he was at the trial or heard the trial, the whole of the trial. So that's just what before Dougie comes in. You didn't see him in the courtroom on that first day.
No, no.
No, he's
And
quite, and
you know,
he's quite easy to spot, isn't he, Jack? He's not like a he's not like
well,
a.
that's true. That's true
I'm
because
not.
you know he likes to have all the attention. He likes to be the center of attention. So when he was in court and when he did arrive in court, he arrived with his phone still turned on and taking phone calls and going off in the middle of things and having to be, you know, admonished by the court for, you know, his behavior because he, you know, in my opinion, needs to be the center of attention everywhere he goes. So, you know, he was hard to
And
miss. That's true.
it would be good, if others who were at the trial, maybe from that side of the fence, would confirm that Jack, Texas Sheepdog, wasn't there. Justin Pulliam could possibly confirm that. John
That's
Gray,
true.
extra good citizen, could possibly confirm that.
That's true.
News Now Ninja could possibly confirm that. Extra
Correct.
good citizen could possibly confirm that. I mean, it would be nice for one of them to be truthful about the events and, actually tell the truth because we know that he wasn't there. So I challenge, if they are listening to this, I'm challenging those four to actually tell the truth. Because if you can't tell the truth on this, why should you believe about anything? Be believed about
That's
anything. I
true.
missed the B.
That's true.
This is an easy
Yeah,
one.
I
This is an
agree.
easy one. Justin Pulliam, John Gray, News Now Ninja, Good Citizen News. It's not a hard
Yeah,
question.
any
And
one of
it's
them.
any one of them could come and tell the truth.
And it's
And
my understanding that John Gray was there pretty much for the entire trial. I don't think he missed any of it. I know that Justin wasn't there for the final day of testimony or the final day maybe of the closing arguments, but John Gray was there for everything. So, and he's supposed to be, honest reporter. He said he was going to go there and he was going to tell the truth. So yeah, he could confirm or deny that Jack was there or not for.
And that would actually help with dispelling this person who is out there telling, going on other people's channels and spreading the mistruth. I think Sheepdog has been on John Filex. I think.
True. That's right. I did see a little bit of that.
And I think I can't remember if Christian has commented on it or not. Maybe he hasn't. Just dispel the lies, please, you people. You can disagree with the verdict. That's fine. You can think that the jury should have come to a different decision. That's fine. But don't be the person who's out there who wasn't there but says they were there and is reporting the facts as though they were there. Sorry, Teresa. I was sort of filling for Dougie, but he doesn't seem to have been able to click the right buttons.
Well, Dougie's in the back, in the basement, as they say. But I want to make sure that he puts up his avatar first, just to turn his camera off. And I don't know. I'm sure he can hear us, but I wanted to. Doug, can you switch over to an avatar? Okay, he just put in an earbud. Doug, can you hear me? Can you switch over to an avatar or turn your camera off? Well, I don't know if you can hear us or not. I guess
Oh
not.
well, keep going. You better keep going with the details then, Teresa.
I may as well. I
Yeah,
may as
yeah.
well. So, as I was saying, after Brandy testified, another daughter testified, and what I noticed about the testimony from the second daughter was that it confirmed a lot of what the first daughter was saying, particularly about like when they moved into the trailer and I guess like the timeline, etc. And it kind of confirmed my sort of belief about Sharon being very indifferent. You know that she just seemed indifferent to what was going on. And it was really weird because as a mother, you just don't see that. You know what I mean? But it was almost like she didn't have, I want to say she wasn't on anyone's side, but it was just like she was just really indifferent about it. Like she just didn't care either way, didn't care.
I think that's and I think the first on that first day when I put up a video of what I don't think I'd spoken to you, but I'd spoken obviously to Dougie, who was in the courtroom, and he'd said the similar thing about Sharon, that she was neither, she wasn't really anything.
Right. She wasn't really anything. From the little bit of testimony that I saw, she was just like, no, I didn't, I never heard that. No, I don't know what you're talking about. Sort of testimony, just really indifferent. Doug, if you can hear me, you need to turn your camera off before I bring you up onto the panel. And I don't know if you can hear me or not. I see your back. Okay, there we go. There we go. Bring him up.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, Doug, I can hear you. You're on the panel. How are
Great.
you this
Hey,
evening?
sorry I'm late, Teresa. I'm not real good about joining these panels, and I forgot my code for getting in. But
Oh,
anyway,
no worries.
I would imagine that everything that Teresa says has been pretty accurate, considering the fact that she heard all of the testimony in this trial, except Teresa, and I'm sure you mentioned this. What was it about the first hour or half hour of the mother? Correct.
The mother, and I missed Detective Reed's. He was the first one that was on the stand.
Yeah, I heard. I was there. Detective Reed was the first person that they called, and I heard all his testimony.
What can you give us some idea of what Detective Reed testified to?
Sure. Let's see here. Um, um, I'm looking through my notes. Yeah, okay. Something, I put times in all my notes, and I'm very happy now that we've had this fiasco with Jack. But I entered the courtroom at 9 a.m. The ADA and the defense were at the judge's desk. They were talking about things I couldn't hear. EGC and Pulliam were there. And then the ADA was talking to the judge that Earl had indicated something about his records. And his records would be released after the trial if that came about. And at 9:10, the judge opened the trial. And let's see. Let's see. Detective Reed.
I'm going to imagine. I mean, I, as I recall, it.
Oh,
They used him
Hang
to
on.
sort of.
I was going to say something happened before Detective Reed, which I think might have been responsible for something else happening. So, Dougie, you were
And
the only one there. You would have had
yeah.
opening
that's right.
statements. You would
Yeah,
have had opening statements first, surely.
Yeah, the ADA is talking to the judge, and then there's a woman there, and there was opening statements. And from my records, the ADA's primary opening statement was, would you have any problems? You're going to be presenting evidence as to the offense that's been alleged, and they had some problem with the audio equipment. And
Now
so
the defense's opening statement, when the defense made their opening statement, they had what was it, like three things I think that they said, reasons that he was not guilty. And one of
yeah,
the things they said was that there was a lack of opportunity.
that's correct.
And that statement that the defense attorney made during his opening statements ended up opening the door to the second and third witnesses that were called for the prosecution. To what my understanding was that they were there to sort of rebut that it could not possibly have, he would not have had opportunity.
Okay,
His,
that's correct, Teresa. I'm sorry. I found where I am. At 9:45, the ADA began her opening statements, talking about Brandy's birthday, the location where this is supposed to have taken place, a little about the family dynamic, that the molestation took place on multiple occasions. She was asleep and woke up with Earl's finger inside her.
Sorry.
That Brandy went to an advocacy center because of it, and that was the ADA's opening statement, laying the groundwork for the charges. Lander's opening statement said that this case boils down to credibility, the credibility of witnesses. It happened over years ago, and that nobody noticed it because of strained relations causing problems, and she didn't tell any family and about something until final allegations. So there you go.
Sorry.
okay, let me stop you right there. Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully do my best to make sure that is the only salacious detail that you guys hear tonight. There were some really gruesome, gory things that were just horrible and unbelievable that were proven to a jury to have been true. But we're not going to go into the details, if that's okay with you, Doug.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know exactly what you're talking about. If you don't mind, Frog, you and Teresa, let's just simply, instead of saying what actually happens, let's just say molestation.
Yes, I would appreciate that too. I'd appreciate that.
Okay, great.
I with can you look at your notes and see what the detective Reed, what did he testify to? Is what
Okay.
I'm curious about.
His name was Joshua Reed, Deer Park Police, since July of 2008. He has a degree from Texas A&M. He was, first assigned. He worked his way up from patrol on the way up, and he became a detective. And he's a specialist. He said he's a specialist in sex crimes and child abuse. He said this case came about because he was investigating another incident with Earl, and he started investigating it. He spoke to Brandy. The ADA asked him, "Did you find Brandy credible?" His answers were yes. Her question was, "Well, why did you find her credible?" And he said her demeanor. Did you find other records? Did you check school records, CPS records? And he introduced the first evidence was school records. The address on Telephone Road where it took place, which was 10810 Telephone Road. He introduced pictures of the trailer park. He showed a map of the location on the screen. Said, "How did you become involved in this investigation if it took place?" And he said, "Well, it's within Harris County." And so she said, "After you did the investigation, what did you determine?" The answer was, "There was enough evidence to take this to the district attorney." And then the ADA released him as a witness, and the defense talked to him.
Well, let me ask you, Doug, did the defense ask him anything about Shell oil or any relationship that
Okay.
Earl had alleged that the daughter was having with Detective Reed? Did he ask him anything about that?
Okay, I tell you what, Teresa, I have a tendency to be sarcastic, okay? But in this case, I won't. So I won't say, "Oh my God," or no. During the entire trial, from the opening to the end, I never heard the word Shell mentioned. No conspiracy between Shell and a deer park, and the defense did not ask Detective Reed anything about having an affair or a girlfriend or anything related to Earl or his daughter. No, that was never mentioned during the investigation.
Well, I wanted to clear that one up because that was an accusation that Earl had made before he went off to the Hooskow by making some nasty claims about his victim, that she was in a relationship with this detective, which was completely retarded and a big made-up lie. So I wanted to make sure that people knew that. I thought that was pretty despicable when he did it at the time, and I don't know if people remember it, but I do. And I wanted to clear that up.
Sure.
I
do remember that. And the thing in my mind was that throughout this, if there was this huge conspiracy between Shell and the Deer Park police to fabricate this entire incident, why wasn't it brought up? Never, not even once in the trial.
Well, Earl went on and on about how this all boiled down to the documents, the records, and how he was going to release all these records that cleared his name and all this other stuff. No matter what, he was going to do it I don't know, 2 Decembers ago or something, and it never happened. And he was going to do it as soon as this case was over, whether he won or lost, win, lose, or draw. He said they were coming out. He didn't care. He had a dead man switch so that even if he got locked up, those records were coming out. And, sitting there in that trial, I saw the defense enter one record, one document, and it was an unsworn statement, one document. So I don't, just more flat out lies from Earl, trying to convince people, the people that follow him, that he is the subject of this huge conspiracy of just everybody on the planet is after him, with the exception of the supporters that continue to pour in money. So,
yeah, you'd think that if this was such a huge conspiracy and he had all those documents, they would have presented them at the trial, and they didn't.
No, they didn't. They didn't present one document. Before we go on any further, that's another thing that I wanted to mention, because I've heard a lot of people, or I've seen a lot of comments where people say, how can someone be convicted without, they had absolutely no physical evidence? But there was physical evidence that was introduced into this trial. There were pictures of the trailer and what have you, and there were, records that, like, as far as their school and what have you, there was some not physical evidence like DNA evidence, but there were actually images and things to where you could sort of take a look at, how they were living, and a little snapshot into that. So
yeah, that's correct.
There wasn't zero, there wasn't nothing. So let's see. What did you think of Sharon's testimony?
I didn't. She came next. But before we go on, the ADA, after Earl's attorney was through interviewing or discussing the case with Detective Reed, the ADA had a redirect question and asking, what are you looking for when you're talking to a witness? And he said his was basically credibility, and whether Brandy was able to give the details. And the ADA said, ask him, was she able to give details? And the detective said yes. So the next witness was Brandy's mother, I guess, Earl's wife at the time.
Her name is Sharon.
Is that Sharon?
That's her name, Sharon Ward.
Yeah, I found her testimony. I don't know, kind of neutral. I don't think she added anything to the defense, nothing to the the district attorney asked her, were you living were you living with him at the time? And she said yes. And does he look like he does now? And the answer was no. And then they introduced a picture of what Earl looked like at the time the molestations took place. A big, big difference.
Yeah, Earl has really changed his appearance over the course of the years. We do have some timeline photos, and after we do this video, I'll put some links in the description of this video to some files and whatnot that we have that are associated with this case. If people want to take a look at that, they're more than welcome to. The records, that I have that I will link you to are records that have, over the course of the last 4 years, have been said by Earl to be made up and fake and fictitious, and anything else that he could do to discredit the actual truth of the matter, that he was a convicted rapist and that he was a very bad person who couldn't tell the truth, if his life depended on it. What did you think about yourself personally? I mean, and I know we're biased, but Doug, what did you think about Brandy's testimony?
I admit, look, I'm biased, but in regards to Brandy's testimony, I thought that when after the mother left and they came and Brandy took the stand, they asked her, of course, what's your name, etc., what she does. She's a trucking manager, and then they took a break, and then they came back, and I found her credible. The ADA asked her, did your dad do things to make you uncomfortable? Her answer, and in quotes, was all the time. He groped her breast.
Doug.
Doug, I really don't want to get into the details.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I said I wouldn't. I beg your pardon. I said that. I apologize.
Yeah, there were just to kind of take over. There were a lot of really disgusting, despicable details, and there's a lot of them that I have known about for a long time. Since before this even started, this trial even got started, or even his arrest, and a lot of them that I've kind of kept to myself as well. And I just want to say that he is a despicable person, that any father who could in any way do the things that he's done to his children, all of them, is a really evil person.
Yeah.
All I have to say, just a really evil person.
You bet. And Teresa, through this, obviously, she discussed the allegations, but I think that there is one thing that I can say in regards to her testimony that doesn't involve him do what he did. But there was one time that, as a result of her being uncomfortable, that she went into her bedroom and closed the door and told Earl that if he tried to come in, she'd kill him.
Right. There was, that was one of the things that she did testify to, that there was an incident that sort of impacted her, and that, she was thrown out of the house after this incident happened. And that put an end to the abuse. And the incident involved her threatening to kill her father, almost killing her father, and retreating back into her room. And
that's right.
Like I said, Earl is a despicable human being.
Yeah.
And I hate that he put children through that, she was a child. She was, 16 years old when this happened. 16 years old. She was becoming independent. She had a job. She was helping pay the bills in her household.
That's right.
And she was having to fend off, a registered sex offender rapist.
Okay.
It was, So that impacted her life, and that she was able to get away from it. So.
Yeah. And there were more than one time that, when asked about these incidents, that Brandy, the daughter number one, said in regards to occurrences, she used the word frequently. Oh my God. And
Yes. Yeah.
this, I think
After
that
she had two sisters that also testified, and
that
they both sort of verified the fact that there was opportunity.
that's correct.
Sorry,
And
before
the
you go to the two sisters,
yes,
Teresa, can you, in terms of Earl's attorney questioning of Brandy, did he challenge her?
Yes, Frog, he did. And his means of challenging it was saying, well, over this period of time, if it was happening daily, it would have been X number of times. And he kept on hammering on that about 150 times. He kept on hammering. And there came a point in time where the judge shut it down and said, look, you've made your point. Stop the numbers game.
So he tried to badger her, but she didn't break.
yeah,
basically.
there actually was a time whenever the judge, actually maybe it was twice, that he had to say that's enough. Asked and answered.
We
Okay.
won't. I mean, you wouldn't. I wouldn't criticize the defense attorney for doing that, because his job is to break the main witness, isn't it? That's basically.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. I think there's a fine line, though, whenever,
Okay.
Yeah.
with regards to that, with regards to the victim,
I was just checking that his defense attorney did that, so that later on down the line we can't hear, well, Sheila paid off the defense attorney.
Yeah.
Oh no, he hammered her. Yeah, he hammered her pretty hard.
Yeah.
Teresa, give me just a minute or two. I'm going to take my earplugs off. I won't be able to hear you. I want to power up a little bit, okay?
Yes, sir. No
All right.
problem. The opening statements had. Let me mute him real quick if I can do that. The opening statements allowed the other two daughters to come in and testify because of the opportunity thing, and they basically, as far as what I saw, because I watched both of them testify, they basically. I'm sorry, that noise throws me off. They basically confirmed that there was the incident that happened with, her retreating to her room, whatever. Now the details of it were different, but they confirmed that to me, in my mind, that it happened. Something happened. Nobody. I guess it's really hard to say what happened, but most of them sort of confirmed the basic details of what happened, and so the second daughter was pretty much the same, and they both confirmed the fact that the oldest daughter did at one point, after she started working, have her own room, and so that there was opportunity. That was one of the contentions of the defense attorney, was that there was no opportunity for Earl to have done those things, because the kids, there were a lot of children, and they always shared a room, etc. That was just no way that it could have happened without someone noticing. And that was one of the reasons I believe that he hammered on the numbers. Okay, well, if it happened often, if it happened 3 times a week, well, then that would mean it happened 300 times, or whatever. He just kind of hammered on those sorts of things. So I do see that we have, well, I'm not even going to mention it. So the state also called a doctor. I forget what the doctor's name was, but this doctor was like a doctor of psychology, and she was there to testify on the effects that trauma has on children and the way that they remember things. And basically what she said was that trauma can affect children's memories in different ways, obviously, because everybody's different. But that some of the common things that will happen is that children who are victims of constant trauma will sort of, what do you call it, where they pretend they're somewhere, not pretend, but where they bring their mind to another place where they're not into the moment of the abuse.
Yeah,
And
that's correct.
those things, those things can impact the way that they remember what exactly happened, what exactly the abuse was, and how often those things happen can impact the way that they remember the exact details of each and every time. So that if like she was saying, like if you go to the grocery store every Tuesday and Thursday, and you do that every week for weeks and weeks on end, that you went to the grocery store on Tuesdays and Tuesday and Thursday, but you don't remember when you bought the coffee and when you bought the toilet paper.
That's
You might have
right.
bought it on Tuesday, you might have bought it on Thursday, it might have been the week before. All of it sort of blends together. So that was basically what she was there to testify to. And after her testimony, the state rested. Did you have anything to add about the doctor?
No, let's see. Just take a step back. Is that after the judge shut down the attorney about hammering about the number of times, the prosecutor brought Brandy back. Do you remember that? Where he asked her
That's
if
right. Mm-hmm.
did she see things, and she said yes, that she did, and she described some of the things that she saw. And like I said, I won't discuss that. But go ahead.
Are you talking about Brandy or daughter 2, daughter 3?
No.
Okay.
He asked Brandy if Brandy saw things. And one of the things that I think that I can say is that
Be careful, Doug. Be careful.
You thanks, Frog. You're right. This is not a thing. Jessica did say that Earl liked to used to tickle them, and she told him she didn't want to be tickled.
There were a lot of the details that I heard were seemed like I'm not even going to say that. I'm not even going with that. But after the second time that Brandy testified, and I do remember her coming back up on the stand, but after that, the state rested, right?
That's correct.
Right. So Brandy came back after the other 2 daughters have been on the stand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And sort of, did you see things? Because the other 2 daughters have spoken about certain things that happened to them, and Brandy was saying, "Well, yes, I did see certain things." So she was basically confirming back to the 2 daughters that the charge did not relate to. One of whom I believe may be in chat, Teresa. I don't know if you know.
I do know. I didn't. I'm not going to bring any more attention to anyone that they don't want.
No, I know.
I am happy to see everyone here tonight. I do want
Yeah.
to say that I'm happy to see everyone here tonight, and
Yeah.
I want to say how brave I thought.
Okay.
Earl's daughters all were, all very brave women.
Oh my God, so brave, so brave. And then there was a jury break, and the psychologist was called up, and her name was Whitney Krause.
Kraus? Was that
Krause?
Krause. Oh, I'm sorry.
Krauss, I believe.
Right, right. And she went over the way people remember how children remember things as far as trauma. She also made it a point. Just go over this real quick because her testimony wasn't very long. She also made it a point to say that she had never seen any of the files or records or anything that pertained to this case in particular, and that everything that she was discussing was, in generally how people react.
That's correct.
So I assume the state rested. Did Earl's attorney try to? I don't know if they do this in Texas or not, but I know they do in some states over there. Try and say the case isn't proven and get it chucked out then, or did he not bother?
Yes, Frog, he did. After the prosecution rested their case, Landers requested a direct verdict of not guilty, and it was denied by the judge. And the judge said that, in his opinions, all elements had been introduced. So basically saying that not only did you not, but they produced sufficient evidence that a juror might come to the conclusion that there was no reasonable doubt. So,
right, okay, yeah. But once again, Earl's attorney has done his job. I was just checking, you know.
absolutely.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that happened, and that he asked for a dismissal right then after the case was rested by the prosecution.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Correct.
So the judge at that point in time is thinking, well, there's, from what I've heard, evidence in my courtroom, there is a case.
That's
Correct.
That's exactly
Yes.
correct.
That's right. He said a prima facie case had been made.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, blah blah blah.
Yeah, and he probably has a better sense than I don't know, Texas sheepdog maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and of course, Sheepdog wasn't there for, first of all, the main witness, the victim.
Yeah.
He wasn't there for any of her testimony. So, that's that's really pathetic to say that, what you don't believe her or whatever, and you weren't even there to see her testify.
That's correct. Sheepdog didn't enter the courtroom until 10:45 on the second day. So, and Brandy testified on the first day. And so, to the best of my knowledge, Sheepdog didn't hear any of Brandy's testimony.
Maybe I'm wrong to call him a liar. Maybe there's something wrong in his brain or something, that he's had visions or something. I don't know, but we know he wasn't there. So
yeah.
Well, even on the day that he arrived, he got there, and then he was there for a little while, and then he went downstaiars for like 20 or 30 minutes while people were testifying to get
he needs his flag break.
The second band of retards that arrived later on. You know what I mean? Because Jack arrived the second day, and then I don't know, an hour or so after he got there, he goes downstairs and he comes back with the ninja guy and the backwards hat caveman fella.
Yeah.
Right.
Caveman.
So take us on to the defense, Teresa.
Yeah. So when the defense called Detective Reed back, and they asked Detective Reed.
Hold on, Teresa. They called Kruger first.
Oh yeah, that's right. I thought they called Reed first, but I guess not.
No, Kruger.
They did call Kruger, and Kruger is Earl has a niece whose name is Sonia, and
Right.
Sonia was married to this Kruger guy. They're not married any longer, but she was married to him at the time of the children, being children, like, I guess it was 95, 96, what have you. And he and Sonia were helping move in some furniture for the family. So he testified that he saw 3 beds in each one of the children's rooms when the beds were moved in, which was, I believe, Christmas of 1995. Do you remember that, Doug? Is that what he said?
Yep.
Christmas of 95?
Yeah. Kruger and Sonia bought beds for all of the children.
Well, they didn't buy the beds. They had a fundraising drive to purchase these beds, and I also understand that it wasn't beds. It was just mattresses. So,
mattresses, right?
right, and it seems like from the testimony, that was the first beds that these children had ever had,
Mhm.
and the oldest one was 14. So that was it's just some of the testimony was just heartbreaking. Just it was
Yeah.
heartbreaking. That.
Oh God.
But in terms of sort of what do you think Kruger's role was there from a
Um,
defense strategy?
well, like the very last question that the defense attorney asked him was, "Do you find her credible, or do you know her to lie or something?" And he says, I know her to be a liar. I don't remember what his exact words were, but he said
Untruthful.
untruthful. Okay, I find her to be untruthful. And they didn't ask any follow-up questions or anything like that. They just left it at that. They didn't say why or any such thing. Just left it at that.
And just about the one daughter or about the three daughters?
Just the one. Just
the
the
one.
one daughter.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And then they called back Detective Reed, and I don't really remember why they had Detective Reed back. It seems like they wanted to ask him some detailed questions, like, did she? I don't remember. They wanted to kind of verify whether or not maybe some of the stories that were told on the stand were ever told to him. Was that what it was, Doug?
Yeah, that's right. They asked him, and he told. But his testimony was that Brandy told him that the abuse had taken place almost every night.
Right, right. And so the defense kind of hammered that point almost every night, and how
Yeah.
often that was, and that's probably another point that I'd like to make was,
Yeah.
the defense hammering that over and over again. And, the daughter would say, oh, we lost Doug. He must have pressed the wrong button. The daughter would say something like, he wasn't there all the time. Well, he wasn't
Mm-hmm.
there all the time for it to happen every single night. So,
Mm-hmm.
He'd be like, well, how many nights a week did it happen? And she'd be like, sometimes he didn't come home for a couple of weeks. And for whatever reason, and I believe, they had the motion in limine so that, his past wasn't allowed to come into the trial. So they couldn't talk about the fact that, he was away at times in their lives in jail,
Mm-hmm.
for raping someone. They couldn't talk about any of those things. Those things didn't come up in the trial. So that would have been too prejudicial. Let me see. After Klumer, they brought Sonia, which was the niece, and the niece testified that she had some sort of swimming party, and that Brandy came to the swimming party. The swimming party would have been in July. She had her over, and she point blank asked Brandy, "Did this happen to you?" And she says that Brandy said, "No, it did not." And the prosecution cross-examined her and asked her questions like, why did you tell Detective Reed that Brandy disclosed to you about this abuse on 2 separate occasions? And she would, no, I don't remember. She kind of hem-hawed, and she was she couldn't answer a lot of questions. And she would stop and she'd say, "Can you repeat the question?" She'd do stuff like that. And then at the very end, when they asked her, why did you tell Detective Reed on that, this girl disclosed to you on 2 separate occasions, and now, and that was in, I guess, like December or something. And then in June, after he's arrested or what have you, you say that you change your story and say that she said, no, that never happened. You know what I mean? So they really kind of tore her crazy up on the thing. I thought anyway. Doug's back. Hang on one second. Doug, you need to turn your camera off and get yourself an avatar.
Yeah. Now, of course, you said it already that you and Doug has said it, that he's biased. And this was all, well, would appear to be Sonia was the witness that was to create the doubt in the jury's mind.
That's right. That's right.
And you mentioned the document. I've seen the document. And this, as you say, it's an unsworn document that basically tells the tale that you just said, that Brandy had told her that she'd lied about it. Now, I have two things, you know. I mean, I probably presume that I don't know if I can allege this. I probably presume that there was something gained by Sonia from Earl, because that's the type of person that Earl is, for giving this testimony and producing this document. And I probably shouldn't say that, but I'm biased, so I'm going to say that's my view. But even let's take the view of someone who doesn't know anything and has no bias. It would, of course, have been possible for Brandy to lie to Sonia because Brandy wanted to lie to Sonia at the time. Wouldn't have meant that it didn't happen.
I don't understand. What do you mean?
Well, I'm saying even if Brandy did tell Sonia that it didn't happen, even if she did, she could have been lying to Sonia, just, you know, because she was at a birthday party. She didn't want to think about it.
You know,
but I don't believe that it was. I don't believe that it was said. But
towards the end of her testimony, well, you know, there's a couple of other things that she testified to. She tried to say that there was a deal with. First of all, Doug, you have to turn your camera off. You need to set up an avatar. Turn your camera off. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I can't bring you up until you turn your camera off. Two, there was a thing about the girls, the daughters in this case, cleaning buildings with mom. Cleaning buildings with mom. So they would go with mom to clean these buildings, etc. And Sonia testified that the reason that they stopped cleaning these buildings is because in some doctor's office they had some pills that came up missing, or some drugs or something, allegedly, that came up missing, and so that they were fired from cleaning the building or whatever. And then later on in the testimony, you know, whenever they were hammering Sonia about why she said, you know, that Brandy disclosed to her on two separate occasions when she talked to Detective Reed when he first questioned her, and then why would she change her story after just 6 months after Earl was charged. She started crying and said that she was on drugs at the time that she made the statement to Detective Reed. And then I started thinking to myself, well, who the hell was the one stealing the pills out of the doctor's office? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I thought to myself, and if I thought that, you know, don't you think that maybe the jury thought the same thing? You know, I don't know this woman from Adam, but if I thought that, I don't know. Doug, there's a little button, the 3 buttons that you can press on, and they will say, like, turn your camera off, or maybe it's at the bottom, start camera, stop camera. There's a little picture of a camera. You just press it.
So Sonia has testified to the defense. Did the defense then rest?
Hold on.
You there, Doug? I got you back up.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I was listening. I didn't hear anything that was not is when the cousin was saying about how the relationship between her and Brandy had deteriorated because somebody named Teresa was colluding with Brandy to get their children thrown out of school. I was
Yeah,
thinking,
she
oh my
actually
God.
testified to that. That is true.
Yep.
That is true.
And I
I
turned to
almost
Teresa.
fell over.
I turned to
Oh my
Teresa and I
God.
said, is that you, the Teresa? And Teresa told me, yes. And I've never even spoken to Brandy. I thought that was hilarious. Um,
Sorry, I said,
uh,
did the defence rest after Sonia, but I forgot about Earl Jr. And I asked, I know from a family point of view, the victims in this matter, this is their brother, and they do have feelings for their brother.
you bet.
So, it's very easy for us to, because his name's Earl, to think he's the same as Earl the father. But tell us about his testimony.
You know, from when Junior got called, before Junior got called, the ADA had a chance to re-question. I believe it was Sonia. Is that right, Teresa?
Yes,
And the ADA just ripped her apart
Yeah, Teresa's
about her
already
state.
said that, Dougie.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Junior is called. Um, they talked about being taught to drive, where he lives, and in my opinion, as a juror, I thought his testimony was a big pile of nothing for either the defense or the prosecutor. And then after he testified, the defense rested. Nothing about Shell.
right. Nothing about Shell. And as far as the brother, um, he he also confirmed that there was the incident that happened. But of course, he saw it like completely different, which was really really weird. He saw it completely different than the girls did,
Yeah.
and I mean, just like night and day. It was like almost like when you watch those TV shows and they present the three different ways people see it. That there's that way, and there's the way you see it, the way I see it, and the way it actually happened. So it was
Yeah.
kind of like the way he saw it. It was just, and I'm not going to call him a liar or anything. They lived through, he lived through the same sort of nightmares, I guess, as well.
Yeah.
So he that the pathologist testified about how children remember things differently. He remembers differently, and that was his prerogative. But I don't really feel like I don't remember him ever like I don't know. I don't know. Other than him having just a different version of events, I don't really know what else he kind of added. I don't really think that he discredited the fact that there was an incident. You know what I mean? But he did try to claim that there was no opportunity because of course there were the children were always around, and if this such a thing had happened all of these hundreds of times, that someone would have seen it, particularly him, because he slept on the couch there in the living room. So
Yeah.
I've I've been told, and I'm trying to keep an eye, but because I'm on my phone, it's hard. But Jessica in chat, she does want us to zero in on what she's saying, and you just highlighted it. There's what Jessica has said about Earl Jr. So that's sister talking about brother. As I say, I know there's love from, continued love from sister to brother, despite the fact that in this event, as regards their father, they might have slightly different views.
I think
Very
that's
different
correct.
views.
Yeah.
And I hope I've summarised that correctly for Jessica. But
You know,
You know,
at
there's a
no
lot of
time,
times.
at no time did Jessica say anything derogatory about other family members. I just, I just felt that Jessica was put on the stand, and I think she loves her sister. She corroborated a lot that Brandy said, but she didn't say anything derogatory about anybody. So I don't see how anybody could say anything negative about her testimony.
I want to answer this question right here. There was nothing ever mentioned about that. I know that was something that was talked about in the interrogation video, but that was never brought up in the trial. So
What's that, T?
about the holes drilled in the wall,
Yeah, never mentioned.
yeah, it never came up. It never came up. I guess after Earl Jr. testified, I don't know if you want to add anything to his testimony. You know, his testimony to me was kind of like Sharon's. It was kind of, it didn't really do anything for me either way. But of course, I'm biased, so I just didn't really feel like it had an impact, you know, on anything that was said before.
Yeah, I think that the hardest thing for me to have digested, had I have been a member of the jury, was the statement by, I believe, by Sonia. And she said something about, she said that there was a pool party relating to somebody having a graduation. And at that pool party, she asked Brandy about the incident, and Brandy told her that nothing had ever happened. And I think, and that's one of the things that the ADA really hammered on in his closing.
I think Jessica's referring to the holes in wall there. They couldn't talk about it because a man. Yeah, you've highlighted it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just inferred that something may have gone Sonia's way, didn't I, a little while ago?
So after
Because
Junior
Yeah.
testified, the defense rested. Nothing about Shell ever came in. And then the
so did the defense, did they offer any psychiatrist, psychologist type evidence?
No.
no, sir,
No.
nothing.
Okay.
And then the defense rested. The judge, outside of the jury, discussed with the prosecutor and the defense what his statement charged to the jury would be, and they all agreed on it, and it ended up being I think 10-page, and that finalized day 2. And then on day 3, Brandy was back in court. The judge read the 10-page charge. He estimated 25 minutes of closing per side. And then ADA number 2 gave her closing. I thought that was kind of weak. The defense attorney, Mr. Landers, gave his closing. I thought his closing was very, very good. He hammered on the point about Brandy saying he hadn't done what he said at the talking to at the pool party to Sonia, and then ADA number 1 closed again, and she did a great. I thought she did a great closing argument.
Yeah, let me say something about that because I kind of have a feeling, when Earl was making
I
those
remember
comments
the
about.
ADA number
Doug,
1. Yes.
let Teresa finish.
Okay.
Well, Earl was saying something about the prosecutorial misconduct. I know he made a few comments about that before, they hauled him away to the Hooskow. But when she started her opening statements, the second ADA, she pointed right at him and she says, what does a pedophile look like? And she pointed right at him. And I thought to myself, because he hates that. You know how he hates that. She did it over and over again.
I thought I'd heard Texas Sheepdog saying he pointed at a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's right. That's right. When there was a time, because she did it over and over again. She had the picture up too. There's a picture of him that they showed, and it was
It wasn't a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer then. It was a picture of Earl.
It was an actual picture of Earl, and I don't know that he looked like Jeffrey Dahmer, but he looked like Chester the Molester in it. It just looked creepy.
Yeah, Frog. It was not Jeffrey Dahmer. It was the picture that she had introduced in her opening statement, a picture of Earl when Earl, at the time these accusations were. It was not a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a picture of the actual Jeffrey Dahmer. But I guess, I don't know, maybe he does kind of look like him. The glasses, the Jeffrey Dahmer glasses. Anyway, I guess some of the other highlights of the trial were just the fact that, there were a gang of retards that were there with Earl hanging out, being silly, trying to get everybody on video. And I don't know, other than that, is there anything you wanted to add, Doug?
Yeah, there is one final thing, I guess, that I thought that the ADA did, the closing ADA did, that was masterful. That she did say, about the statement that Sonia had made, that Brandy had told her, and she said, when she got called out on her lies, and the ADA said, and what was her response about that to the DA? Oh, I was on drugs.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. They really tore her up on the stand. I thought, I'm biased, but I just thought that they just really whacked her down. So
I agree. That's what I have in my notes. ADA tore her up.
I don't know if you guys have anything else that you want to add, or if anybody has any questions for us in the chat. But I wanted to, I guess, let you guys know what our experience was as far as going to the trial and what we saw, what we witnessed. And I just kind of wanted to leave it at that. And I think we've been going for about an hour, well, almost an hour and 20 minutes now. So I'd kind of like to end it here, if that's okay, if you guys don't have anything else to add. Frog, you have any closing statements?
No, I think it was always going to be difficult to prove a crime that occurred all those years ago. But the jury was convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that the crime occurred. And Earl cannot complain that he didn't get a fair trial. He wasn't represented by a private defender. He was represented by the second best defense attorney in Houston or Texas. I can't
Correct.
remember what he said. Yeah.
I think
So,
in Houston. I think in Houston is
but
what he
it
said.
sounds like he didn't really have much of a defense because what did you say? 2 family witnesses? No, and
Right.
Sonia's husband, so 3. Yeah. And Detective Reed back on the stand. Where was all this dossier? So, no, and don't believe the lies that, well, the one big liar who's out there. But I'd like to see Justin Pulliam. I
Yeah, I'd
don't
like
think
to
there's
see
any,
what he has to say.
I don't think Pulliam is, I don't think he's an evil person. I think he probably, tries to be a good person. And I would like to think that good person would come out and tell the truth.
Yeah,
He can
I
still,
would like to think that too.
he can still think in his own mind that Earl was innocent. I don't know. It doesn't have to say that he doesn't think he wasn't, he's guilty, but just tell the truth of what occurred and who was there and who actually heard things.
Correct. Did Earl's lackeys piss off the jury? I really don't know. I know that the judge did some admonishing in the court before they arrived. Outside of their presence, that's what I'm trying to say, about people sidling up on the jury and about people going, running up on the jury before they were able. What they would do is when the jury would come in, everybody would stand, of course, but they'd bring them in from somewhere out in the hallway, and they'd have to walk through the middle of the courtroom, and then they'd have to leave the same way. And people could leave right behind them. And what he was saying was, you need to let the jury leave and give them a moment to get back into the jury chambers before you go running out and sidling up on them. Because apparently there were some people doing that. Doug, you have to turn your camera off if you want to come back up. Okay, so that was one of the questions. Let's see what else. I saw another one. Was the jury that split? And here's my answer to that. I wanted to say about sitting there and watching the testimony and being able to see the jury, because they're sitting right there, and there were some gentlemen in the front row of the jury who, during Brandy's testimony, honestly to me looked like that they wanted to get up out of their chair and just go beat the fuck out of Earl. They were just shooting daggers at him with their eyes. And I said, after we all left that day and stuff, I asked my husband, did you notice those, was it just me, or did you notice those jurors looking at Earl like that? At one point, the district attorney, who, the ADA that was there, had leaned up in her chair so that one of the gentlemen wasn't able to directly see Earl. And he leaned over in his chair so that he could continue to glare at him. And I thought, did I see that right? My husband said he noticed the same thing. Doug said I had asked Doug, he had noticed the same. Did you notice that, Doug?
I did. There were those 2 guys with the beards in the front. I think that Teresa and I are in agreement. If they had had an opportunity, they would have jumped up and run across and strangled him.
This question about was the jury that split? A jury is split until it reaches its decision. So
Correct.
a jury is always split. Yes, the evening of the first day of their deliberations, they were at 6-6.
Yeah.
So
Teresa,
6.
may I make one final comment here? I want to continue listening.
Of course.
But
of course.
in my opinion, and I, like I said, about being biased, we've been honest about that. I thought that Brandy and Jessica were both very credible. I just think that they spilled their hearts out there, and I don't see how a juror could not have believed them. God bless them.
Here's another good question about the sentencing. What was said about sentencing? It's, my understanding after the jury came back with the guilty verdict that the judge, well, I don't know, maybe Doug should explain that. But the judge offered or asked Earl's side, the defense, if they wanted to try to come to an agreement with the prosecutors on a deal for sentencing before they started the sentencing phase. And so I guess to avoid Earl's dirty laundry being aired out to the jury before they made a decision on sentencing him up to 99 years, he made a deal with the prosecutors that he would serve 20 straight, no parole, in exchange for not having to have the jury decide. Let me see if there's any more questions here before I jump off.
And there still is nothing on the sort of no official documentation out there about the sentence. So, but obviously there are people in the know who know, family members and that. And Doug was in the courtroom for the sentencing. So Doug heard the 20 years, no parole, I believe.
Correct.
And
right, because I don't know that that's actually showing up yet in the court record.
We believe it's not appealable, the sentence. The conviction.
Right, I believe that was part of the deal, was that there wouldn't be any appeals. That's part of making a deal, I guess, on the sentencing itself.
Nasty's asked you, yeah, well, you've highlighted it, sorry.
Why didn't Earl take the stand? I don't know. Probably because he would have had to explain a lot of things. He would have had some explaining to do.
And Jessica's made a, if he'd have gone for jury sentencing, there would have been a lot more evidence provided to the jury, and Earl would not have any chance of seeing the light of day again, because the jury would have sentenced him far more than 20 years with the enhancements.
Most likely, yes, that's true.
Sorry, most likely. Once they'd heard the additional things that the jury was, that was kept away from the jury because they didn't want to bias the jury.
Right, that's right. And looking back or looking forward even, he got a fair trial. He did. He got a fair trial. So.
Yeah. And Nasty says, why didn't he take the stand? Well, he'd have followed you see, Bullish Earl would have taken the stand, but he was sensible enough to follow his attorney's advice not to take the stand.
I would agree with that statement. I think Earl would have loved to have taken the stand. I think he is of the attitude that he would have been able to convince those jurors, and he may have been able to. He's a smooth talker. So, can he appeal? Yes, he can appeal
the conviction.
Yeah. Right, he can appeal the conviction.
But his chances of having a successful appeal are probably about, you're showing the same chances of you seeing a flying pig. So, I would suspect.
I would too. But you never know. You never know. So, that's how the justice system works, and he has the opportunity to appeal, and more power to him. So you can spend that war chest on appealing, and maybe some people will donate some money to him while he's in jail, and he can just keep doing what he does. I don't care. He's not going to be able to hurt anybody in there. That's my thought. So I don't care what he does now. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining me. Doug, do you have anything you want to say before we end this?
No, I appreciate your letting me come up.
Well, I sure do appreciate you being here because, you know, you were there for every bit of the testimony.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate you being here. I'm going to drop you off here just in a second.
Hey,
I'm
thanks
gonna
for lunch.
have a little soliloquy. You're welcome. Anytime. Anytime. Have a good evening, Doug. All right, Frog. I want to thank you too for joining me. Do you have anything you want to add? Anything you want to say before we wrap this up?
It's an opportunity for me to say how personally I think incredibly strong the three daughters have been through this. It must have been terribly difficult to deal with this in the gaze of a, you know, social media personality as well. It would be bad enough, you know, if he was just their father. But, you know, and I hope that through our own little way, they've known that they've had some support there.
Right, right. I hope so. I hope that they.
And I hope we haven't done too much wrong, because I'd hate to think we had, you know.
I hope, you know, and I've always hoped that the sort of abuse that we took throughout this whole thing from Earl was abuse that his children didn't have to take. And so, you know, every bit of garbage that he threw my way, I just marked it off as garbage that he didn't throw their way. You know what I mean? So I was happy to do that, and I would do it again in a minute. So anyway, I want to thank you for being here, Frog.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Teresa.
And thanks everybody. Bye-bye. You have a nice evening. Anyway, thanks everybody else for also being here, and all of the people, you know, that have been, you know, by my side through all of this when I've had some of the sad moments and some of the nasty things that have been, you know, said about myself. You know, I appreciate everyone, you know, being my rock because I don't know, here I've been with my Discord friends for a while. I don't know if I maybe would have been able to get through it without you guys. So I sure do appreciate that. And I hope that if there's ever anything that Jessica needs, or, you know, what have you, that she'll reach out, you know, we'll be there if that's something that she needs from us. So anyway, I don't really know what else to say tonight other than I just wanted to bring you guys the story from us, our side, or whatever. I'm going to do my very best to tonight go through and put in the links for all of the information, and I guess all of the other videos that kind of that go along with this story, this case, this News Now Houston thing, and it'll all be here in this one little concise video, and hopefully we can all put this behind us. Anyway, thanks so much, everybody. Y'all have a nice evening.